why two people can stand in the same TSA line, wearing similar clothes, carrying similar bags, yet only one of them gets pulled aside while the other walks straight through like nothing happened. And what if I told you it's often not about what's in your bag, but how you move, how you hesitate, how you breathe, and how you behave in those tiny, forgettable moments you don't even realize anyone is watching. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: most travelers never hear out loud. TSA officers are trained to notice behavior before they notice belongings. And while everyone assumes security is all about scanners and machines and rules printed on signs, a huge part of airport screening still relies on human observation, quiet pattern recognition, and subtle signals that scream, "Pay attention to this person," without you ever saying a word. And that's where ordinary travelers accidentally get themselves flagged without doing anything illegal, without breaking any rules, without even meaning to. And it usually starts the moment you step into the terminal, when your brain switches into travel mode and your body does things it normally doesn't. Like gripping your passport a little too tightly, checking the departure board too often, pacing back and forth near the checkpoint, or suddenly changing your walking speed when you see uniforms. And no, that doesn't make you guilty. It makes you human. But human behavior is exactly what trained eyes look for, especially behaviors that don't match the environment. Like being overly stiff when everyone else is relaxed, or overly chatty when silence is the norm, or trying too hard to look calm when calm people don't try at all. And the wild part is that most of these signals happen subconsciously, which means people argue afterwards saying, "I didn't do anything," and they're right. They didn't do anything obvious, but subtle things add up. Like hesitation at simple instructions, that half-second pause when asked a basic question, the way someone answers too fast or too slow, the way eyes dart not because they're hiding something, but because they're tired, jet-lagged, nervous about missing a flight, or just uncomfortable in crowded spaces. And that's why you'll see someone get selected for extra screening and think it's random when it rarely feels random to the person watching. Because patterns matter more than intent, and TSA doesn't need you to look suspicious in a movie sense. They're trained to notice inconsistencies, especially when behavior doesn't align with context, like arriving extremely early and acting rushed, or arriving late and acting oddly calm. Both stand out, both trigger curiosity, and curiosity leads to closer attention, which leads to more questions, which leads to delays, and once that process starts, it's hard to reverse because the system is designed to slow down uncertainty, not speed it up. And then there's body language, which people underestimate more than anything because you can't turn it off, even when you think you're controlling it, and small movements matter, like fidgeting with your pockets repeatedly, adjusting clothing too often, touching your face excessively, shifting weight constantly, or scanning exits without realizing it. None of these are crimes, but they are signals, especially when stacked together. And then there's the way travelers interact with their belongings, like opening and closing bags multiple times, reorganizing items unnecessarily at the checkpoint, pulling things out, then putting them back. Because uncertainty around your own bag reads as unfamiliarity, and unfamiliarity triggers attention, especially in places where routine is expected. And TSA officers see thousands of people a day, which means patterns jump out fast. And the people who stand out most are usually not the ones breaking rules, but the ones who don't look like frequent flyers, even if they are, because stress changes behavior. And stress leaks through posture, tone, and timing, especially in airports where everything is loud, rushed, and overstated. And another thing people don't realize is how silence can work against you just as much as talking too much, because giving clipped answers, avoiding eye contact entirely, or responding with unnecessary defensiveness to neutral questions can unintentionally raise red flags. Not because officers think you're hiding something, but because defensive behavior without a trigger feels off, and humans are wired to investigate off. And the opposite extreme isn't safe either, because oversharing, joking excessively, or trying to charm your way through security can also backfire. Since checkpoints aren't social spaces, they're procedural ones, and behavior that ignores that context stands out. And then there's something even more subtle that almost no one talks about, which is how people react to authority presence. Because confident travelers treat TSA like traffic lights. Acknowledge them, follow instructions, move on, while anxious travelers subconsciously change their behavior when uniforms appear. Shoulders tense, breathing changes, speech speeds up or slows down. And that shift is visible even if the person feels fine mentally. And yes, TSA understands anxiety, but their job isn't therapy, it's risk reduction. And risk is often assessed through deviation, not wrongdoing. And one of the biggest mistakes travelers make is assuming that being polite alone is enough, when clarity and consistency matter more than politeness, because confusion causes friction, and friction attracts attention. And once attention locks onto you, even innocent things get examined more closely, like electronics placement, shoe removal, liquid handling, boarding, pass grip, and timing. And then there's the issue of last-minute changes, which happen all the time in airports. Gate switches, bag rearrangements, seat changes, and while these are normal, reacting dramatically to them can unintentionally elevate scrutiny. Because strong emotional reactions signal unpredictability, and unpredictability is something security systems naturally slow down. Not punish, but slow down. And slowing down feels like punishment when you're trying to catch a flight. And what most travelers don't understand is that TSA screening isn't designed to accuse, it's designed to observe, verify, and reduce unknowns. And unknowns often come from behavior, not objects. And that's why two identical bags can receive very different treatment depending on who's carrying them and how. And then there's fatigue, which quietly wrecks behavior patterns without people noticing. Because tired travelers move differently, respond slower, miss instructions, and appear disoriented, which again isn't illegal, but it's noticeable. And noticeable equals attention, and attention equals time. And time at TSA is what everyone wants to avoid. And one of the strangest behaviors that draws attention is over-preparation. People who arrive overly early, overly organized, rehearsing answers in their head, double-checking documents constantly, because over-control can read as tension, and tension triggers curiosity just as much as chaos does. And then there's the role of technology. Because people glued to phones at checkpoints often miss instructions, step forward late, or hold up lines, which forces officers to intervene. And once intervention happens, screening often becomes more thorough by default. Not as punishment, but because interaction has already begun. And disengaging mid-process is inefficient. And efficiency is everything in security environments. And all of this creates a strange paradox where the safest way to move through TSA is to look boring, predictable, and unremarkable. Not confident, not nervous, not chatty, not withdrawn, just neutral, which is harder than it sounds when you're dealing with crowds, noise, time pressure, and personal stress. And that's why experienced travelers often glide through without realizing they're doing anything special, because their behavior matches the environment perfectly. While first-timers or stressed flyers accidentally stand out without meaning to, and none of this means TSA is judging character, intentions, or morality. It means they're responding to signals in a system designed to prioritize caution. And understanding that can actually make travel smoother. Because when you stop fighting the process emotionally and start flowing with it behaviorally, everything feels easier, faster, and calmer. And the irony is that the less you worry about being watched, the less you stand out. Because natural behavior blends in better than forced calm ever will. And that's the part no one tells you, that security isn't just something happening to you. It's something you're participating in whether you realize it or not. And once you understand that, airports stop feeling hostile and start feeling predictable. And predictability is what gets you through quietly, efficiently. And without that sinking feeling of being pulled aside for reasons you can't explain. Because the truth is, TSA isn't watching for criminals. They're watching for changes. And the more consistent you are, the less interesting you become. And in an airport, being uninteresting is the real goal.